Hi, today we're looking at the Pages and Screens report in Google Analytics 4, and as always, we'll be looking at the demo account for the Google Merchandise Store. The Pages and Screens report provides data about how your users are interacting with different pages on your website. This makes it useful if you're reviewing content, planning website changes or improvements, looking at user experience, or maybe you just want to better understand your website visitors. So we're here already in the Pages and Screens report. You can navigate this by going into the engagement section within the lifecycle reports in GA4. You'll see a few familiar elements if you're used to GA4, such as the option to change dates. I've just gone for October 2022 up in the top right corner. You can see the left-hand navigation, the search bar at the top, and of course then the main reporting elements in the center of the page. There are charts at the top, but we're going to focus on the table since that's where the bulk of the data is that you're likely to look at. We can see here that the default dimension, so the first column, is page title and screen class. And as we're looking at this particular demo account for a website, we're going to see the page title. If you're looking at an app, you'll see the screen class instead. If you wanted to, you could use the drop-down menu here to change this to page path. And to be honest, it really depends on what you're using this for and what's most useful. I find I switch between the two depending on what I'm using this report for on the particular day. So the first column that we see here is views. And as always, we're ordering this by default descending. So we've got the page with the most views at the top. For this particular site, it's almost always the home page, and that goes all the way down to the page with the fewest views. And there's actually 1,535 rows just for October 2022. So quite a big report. Don't forget you can use the search function as well if you're looking for a particular page. Then we have the rest of the default metrics. So you might also be interested in, for example, how many users have seen that page in this time period. Note that there's always a difference between the number of views and users, or usually a difference, and the number of views is always equal to or higher than the number of users. And that's actually what the third column is telling us about. We're seeing here the number of views per user on average. So on average, people saw the homepage 1.78 times. Of course, nobody's actually seen the homepage 1.78 times. Some people have seen it once, some twice, some 10, maybe even some 50 times, and this is just the average. So it helps us to understand how often people go back to this page. For instance, the shopping cart page is revisited on average a lot more often. Then we have average engagement time. This tells us how much time people spent with this page as the focus of their browser. Of course, we need to consider that different pages have different purposes. For example, the homepage here, it looks like people don't spend too much time on it. However, we would expect and hope that people are using the homepage as a jumping off point to other pages on the site. Whereas blog pages or product pages, maybe we'd expect people to spend a bit more time. Next, we have events and conversions, and these will be very different depending on the type of site that you're looking at or the type of app. I won't go into this too much right now, but just to give an example, we could look at how many form submissions took place on a certain page, or how many video views or downloads. And finally, we have total revenue. Again, with revenue, we need to be conscious of what the page purpose actually is. Most people aren't spending money on the homepage or the product page, so the revenue is always going to be attributed to the pages where there are transactions or conversions of some kind. So where that actually takes place and the revenue is counted. So there'll be limited pages that are actually counting revenue here. That doesn't mean that they're not valuable to earlier parts in that user journey. And as always, if we want to reorder by any of these to see the top page by revenue, the top page by average engagement time, we can click the little arrow that shows up next to the metric name at the top of the column to order by ascending or descending for any of these metrics. So the Pages and Screens report can provide some really useful data to help you understand how users engage with your site. However, you also need some common sense and some context when you're looking at this data. Bear in mind what each individual page is there to do, and look at the metrics that make the most sense for that page.